From sea to sea, from planet to planet, and star to shining star, from out of the night and into the light, from the pyramids of Giza to the pyramids on Mars, from the dark side of the street to the dark side of the moon, from political and international intrigues to hometown shenanigans. All right, we're going to cut through a lot of it tonight because my guest is a very, very busy man and can only be with us, I think, for about the first half hour or so. I'm not even sure he needs an introduction to this audience. My guest, as many of you know, has been he's currently living in Japan. He has connections within the very top echelons of secret government and world government. He is a person that straddles like a colossus, if you will, politics and economics. He was the director of the Asian Economic Desk for Forbes magazine for a period of time, and I've been reading his posts. I just read you his post last night, and so most of the people in my audience are very, very familiar with my guest, who is one of my personal heroes, Benjamin Fulford. Hi, Ben. How are you?
Fine. Yeah, things are happening for sure.
All good things. I'm so, every time I read your post, it seems like the tide is turning, that the whole point of 2012 is there's more of us than there are of them. And I love the fact that you're thinking big, that you're looking at the whole globe being reshaped. So give us the update. What's all the good news going on behind the scenes?
All right. Well, first of all, here in Asia, the secret history has come out, and we find out that Korea and Japan were ruled in secret by two competing Korean dynasties, the northern and the southern. It goes back so far that, for example, during World War II, the Japanese ground army was run by the northern dynasty, and the navy was run by the southern dynasty.
Okay.
And the southern dynasty was allied with the House of Windsor and the British, and the northern dynasty was allied with the Nazis. And then to this day, George Bush Sr. is considered to be the boss of some of the big Yakuza groups, and he supplies them, or his group supplies them, with drugs through the 7th Fleet.
Yes.
So that situation's been going on, but what happened was there was a coup d'etat in the north, and North Korea was run by the leftovers of the Japanese Imperial Army. So it was like the Japanese World War II government in exile was what North Korea really was.
Okay.
But now that's changed. The new leader, Kim Jong-un, is willing to accept some kind of a ceremonial post. And what this will mean is that the thing being discussed now, and a lot of the Japanese right-wing types and everybody else who have the actual men with the guns and the goons, and all that kind of stuff,
yes,
are saying that they want to join North and South Korea with Japan, and then move the capital of the new entity south of Osaka to around the area around Nara, the oldest city there, Tenri City. To
Tenri City, which is the center of, in my belief system, actually is the 6th chakra point of the planet, and the center of a religion called Tenrikyo that was started by Oyama, a woman who was channeling Pleiadian extraterrestrials in the 1840s. So I've been there, and it's a very sacred city, and it's the perfect place for them to start sort of a whole new system.
Now, the other thing is that the Japanese people, have for 50 years, they've been sending stuff to the rest of the world, cars, TVs, radios, and whatever, and a lot of time they have been just sending it on credit.
Okay.
And what that means is that they have they're the largest external creditors in the world. That means they have a lot of trust. A lot of people trust them and have goodwill towards them because they got stuff from them, physical stuff that they can use. So what's happening is the plan being pushed is that we're going to set up a long-term investments for everybody agency, or life agency, with an initial budget of 10 million yen, or about $125,000 for every man, woman, and child on Earth for development projects, canals, irrigation projects, schools, hospitals, nature preserves, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And that's going to lead to a huge project. The discussions are going on now. We're at the level where we're down to a few people. For example, the man now in charge of the yen printing press is a guy called Eiji Katsu. He's the top bureaucrat at the Ministry of Finance, and someone's going to meet him on Friday to discuss this. That's what that's the cutting edge of what's going on back over here. Okay.
Yes.
Yep. Now in the West, it's still more complicated. You still have what's happening is the Pentagon and the military types are really trying to isolate the Federal Reserve Board thugs, and that process is still taking time. You still don't see it on the corporate media. You still see these people running around, and as long as you do, you can't be 100% optimistic. But what I am hearing, though, is that what the Pentagon people have decided is that they're going to, end the Fed. They're going to bust up the big corporations that were acquired by these people through their printing press. For example, Microsoft will apparently cease to exist as it is now. According to these people, and there's gonna be a lot of money for the United States and for Europe, but only after these criminals are removed, and they of course are stubbornly clinging to power. They're trying to join us now, and they're being told no because you guys are just not trustworthy. You've broken every promise you've made for the past hundreds of years, and nobody trusts you.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, they lie through the teeth constantly. They don't know how to make an honest deal, and so they've lost what's known as trust in the world. That's what's going on. We say, we don't trust you anymore. You're murderers and liars, and you've never kept any of your promises, so they're being sort of slowly isolated. And that process is what you can see in the corporate news when the IMF is saying they have no money, when Greece is telling the Germans to buzz off, when Sicily is on strike. This is the process of cutting them off to get them out. Now, what you need to understand is that what the Asians and the allies in the West and the rest of the world have to their advantage is that they control the physical stuff, the actual ships with stuff in them, as opposed to the money printing presses for dollars and euros. And at the end of the day, you can eat a shipload of wheat, you cannot eat a shipload of dollars. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's the process. We're isolating on the physical economy so that their virtual financial economy is like Wile E. Coyote after you run off the cliff.
It's taking him this long to figure out that he can't hang in there and fly. And
they've been doing things like taking gold out of Canada and shipping it, or stealing money from Libya. Things like that to keep their little charade going, but they're running out of options, and this whole idea of starting a war in Iran and the Middle East, I don't think I'm sure they're not going to be able to pull it off because, the Pentagon and the Russian military and the Chinese military aren't going to buy it. And they're not going to, be fooled into destroying 80% of the planet for a bunch of satanic bankers. You know what I mean?
You have this nonsense in the media today where the head of one guy who was head of one of these agencies says, well, Iran's going to, certainly they're going to attack a target inside the United States. They've shifted their entire slant. And I'm like, really? And they're going to do, did they see what happened to Afghanistan? Did they see what happened to Iraq? And they didn't even have anything to do with 9/11, and we went and leveled them. And,
but that is a warning that these, this is these Khazarian bankers, okay?
Yes.
Now, the other thing, that I've heard from their secret long-term planning is that they might try to hit the U.S. East Coast with a tsunami. Now, this is important. The island of Las Palmas in the Canary chain, if you jump that into the ocean, it'll cause a 100-meter or 300-foot tsunami to hit New York and Washington and Florida and southern Europe.
Yes.
Now, there were threats to hit Tokyo and set off Mount Fuji against Japan to try to force them to keep financing these banker criminals. And what I told the Japanese military right-wing types is that if they do that, threaten to retaliate by sinking Las Palmas. However, under no circumstances would such a thing happen unless Tokyo was directly hit by a major attack on the part of these people. So if something happens without an attack against Asia. It means that it was caused by these bankers and their thugs. And that's the thing you got to watch out for. They say, oh, New York got hit by tsunami. We can't pay our debts because of that. Just watch out. These people are very dangerous. They're mass murderers, and they do things like, hit Japan with a tsunami weapon. They're totally way out there when it comes to, common sense. These people are just not normal. Okay, they do things like kill millions for fun.
5 years ago, the Pentagon was saying that Las Palmas, this island in the off the coast of Africa, was a threat, and they actually had a proposal where they were saying, well, maybe we should sink it. Maybe we should go out and sink the island a piece at a time, so that if this volcano blows on the island, it doesn't split the island in half and create this giant tsunami across the coast. But I had two questions for you. There was a lot of people that were asking as to whether or not you had any information about the Iraqi dinar revaluing once Iraq starts pumping oil again, and if because you and I both know that between George Soros and his whole Bretton Woods II conference and all the other things that are going on, if there's another money system that they're talking about, whether or not it's the special drawing rights or the SDRs or whatever, are they looking at another economic or financial system to set up to then replace the whole Federal Reserve note banking deal once the military, as you say, quite possibly takes out the thugs in the Federal Reserve?
Well, first of all, look, the Iraqi dinar started off as a con job by the Bush-Clinton crime syndicate. Okay. They took all this stuff, they devalued it to pennies on the dollar, when it used to be like $3, and they sold it to everybody as a way of generating cash. Now, however, the fact of the matter is that a lot of the people in the military and other agencies, a lot of people bought these things. When a new system goes online, some way will be made, I'm sure, to compensate them without the original perpetrators of this crime benefiting. I think that's what's going to have to happen. Now, you got to remember that once this is over, there'll be plenty of money for everybody. There'll be literally, like I said, I mean, I've looked at it and I realized that if you take all that stuff these people have been putting into black ops, you give it to the people, easily you could have $100,000 or more for every single human being on Earth.
Yes.
But the problem is you can't just give people cash because they'll just spend it on junk and all go back to the same people. It has to be delivered in the form of actual goods and services, and that's where you need technocrat types to make sure that people actually get stuff, real stuff, like nice new parks and canals and
infrastructure, homes, technology, energy independence, food, all those things. Yes,
things that exist in the real world.
Right.
Now, there have been many different competing plans for a new financial system. And, the bad guys want to, somehow write off all their debt to the rest of the world and then be still left in charge. Now, obviously, if you run a company into bankruptcy, as a general rule in the corporate world, you're not put in charge after the Chapter 11. I mean, that's common sense,
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what they've done. They've run the U.S. into a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and then there's going to be a restructuring. And you're not going to have the same people who put it there in charge, because they're the ones who ruined the U.S. economy. They're not competent enough to be running it. You guys should be the richest country on Earth, and instead they've driven half your population into poverty through their greed. But one thing that might happen is, like I've said many times, the U.S. dollar, if it is to survive, it has to be separated from the U.S. economy, because there's no way that everybody who owns 90% of the dollars in the world who aren't Americans is going to allow these to be dropped in value by half, because they paid for it with real stuff. Instead, they're going to take all the fraudulent derivative stuff off the books. Everything that's based on fraud that doesn't have any correspondence in the real economy will be removed. There has to be paper receipts, stock certificates, things to prove that you have something real in order for your dollars to remain. But the recommendation I'm making is that the Americans issue a new currency.
Okay.
And possibly that could be the Amero.
Okay, the Amero. Okay, well, there's been a lot of talk about the Amero. The Amero has been minted in Denver. Hold on, we got to take a break right here, Ben. An historic interview, ladies and gentlemen, with the man from Japan, Benjamin Fulford. And this is A Strange Universe, and we'll be back in a few beats of your heart.
Welcome to the world's meeting place. American.
It's practically narcotic.
Freedom.
Oh, yes, I like very much.
Radio.
You're an American institution.
American Freedom Radio.
From sea to sea, from planet to planet, and star to shining star. Welcome to Outside the Time-Space Continuum in our ongoing mission to defend the multiverse from all threats, foreign and domestic. So we're back with a fantastic friend of the show, a great light and beacon of truth to the world. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Ben Fulford. So we were just talking specifically about the planetary money system and whether or not, and let me just give you one experience of mine. When I was in Amsterdam in 2005, I became friends with some bankers there who took me into this big vault, and they showed me a bunch of, this was April of 2005, they showed me these big cases of the brand new U.S. $100 bills. But they were red. They had a reddish tinge to them. They had sort of like pixie dust dusted through them. I couldn't really see the face because they had bands around them, and they were in these kind of clear plastic cases. But I was told back then that they were going to turn America's economy into Japan, basically, and that these were part of a contingency plan that they were going to use. There was about 60 billion of these brand new bills in these international centers in Amsterdam, in Geneva, in Madrid, in Paris, in London, and that at some point the United States, because they told me all this was going to happen, that they were going to hyperinflate the currency, that the Federal Reserve was just going to start printing money like it's going out of style, and that there was a series of contingency plans that were going to be put in place to actually go to a foreign and domestic currency, exactly like Japan did with the foreign and domestic yen. But another contingency that you're talking about has to do with the Amero, where we've got a North American currency between Mexico, the United States, and Canada. Now, Ameros were actually being printed by the Denver Mint, and there were a few people that actually had put these up online as yet another one of these contingency plans. Now, as far as I can see, they may have abandoned the Amero and then gone, they may still be going towards the two-tiered currency like Japan to stabilize the U.S. trade debt of the United States, but then hyperinflate the currency inside America. What's your opinion?
Well, that's you see that might work. Now, I know the original Amero plan was rejected because it basically involved the Fed banksters saying, we're not going to pay back our debt. We're going to give you these new rainbow bills instead, and the Chinese told them to buzz off. But a two-tier currency might be the way to deal with it, because what you need to do is, you need to make the stuff that's made in America cheap for Americans, so they don't buy Chinese stuff in Walmart, because otherwise China will end up owning the U.S., and so some kind of devaluation, about 50%, would have to take place. What that would mean is that the United States would become 50% cheaper for foreigners. You get lots of free-spending tourists dumping in. American exports would become very, very competitive with the Chinese and everybody else. And so, once again, people was making real stuff and hiring real people would be, hiring again. And it would be good for the average American. Now, the Amero idea, the advantage, now as a Canadian, personally, I'm against it because one of the reasons that Canada didn't join the United States is because their motto was good government. And you guys were,
How's that working out for the Canadians, I might add?
Well, I mean, we still have good government, whatever else you might say. It's low on the corruption index, and everybody's got their medical care, and as a general rule, we've got pretty good government. And the United States, I'm sorry to say, does not, and neither does Mexico. And we actually do have a genuine democracy, unlike that charade with the bought elections that you guys have,
Yes, although Canada now has, because of the oil that's coming out of British Columbia, Canada has now reached parity, where it's actually about $1.07, I think, for the U.S. and Canada. Wasn't the goal for introducing the Amero was that the United States, Mexico, and Canada that they had to basically kind of bring the United States down, bring Canada up, and of course bring Mexico up as much as they could, so that the three currencies would be basically equal. Because I know for a period of time, even the Mexican peso was about 4 per dollar. Now it's back to like 12.
Yeah, they were working on that. But in any case, the point is that the other thing, okay, there's going to be enough money for everybody and real economic boom times once this problem is settled. However, we still have these high-level criminals we got to deal with. You have this secretive group of about 8 families that were running the heart of your secret government. They have to be removed. You have to be liberated.
Right.
And the other thing is that all that money that went into black ops, all that money went into underground bases and secret projects, that's going to have to be integrated with the public part of the economy. And that's going to be very interesting to see what these people have been doing with all those trillions of dollars. And hopefully it'll be a Jetsons type age that will begin.
Well, and there are some people living that reality, Ben. I mean, there are people on this planet that are living, for all intents and purposes, a Star Trek kind of reality where, I've seen the technology out at places like Area 51. I've seen the discs, I've seen the shuttlecraft, I've interviewed people and talked to people who talk about the Nebraska Navy and the entire sort of alternative technology that's 10, 15, some say 20 years ahead of anything we've seen, but that is very, very strictly segregated, even into two different space programs. I mean, there's a whole other world out there that's been funded with this black world technology for many years. Again, hammers and toilet seats don't cost $2,500. They're flying bank accounts. These nonsensical B-2 bombers and all that.
Yeah, but the thing is that we now control the budget. They were parasitical. Okay, they were doing all this, enjoying it, and we were paying the bills and not enjoying the benefits.
Yes,
and that's going to end. So yeah, I mean, I think a fundamental decision has been made by these people in the Pentagon and the agencies that they're going to share this with the rest of humanity, but in a responsible manner, and that should lead to there's no reason why we cannot end poverty and stop environmental destruction. That could be done within a matter of months if the decision was made to do so.
And if they release the technology to be able to do it. And here's
not just that. We need the structures of rules for sharing the planet. Okay, you breathe the same air as the Chinese. We use the same oceans. That means you have to come up with a friendly way to share the planet. I don't mean a centralized world government necessarily, but you certainly need to have some mechanisms so you can solve international conflicts with court cases instead of war, and where you don't rape the oceans and destroy the forests without paying any economic costs except for future generations.
Well, you've had Bono, of U2 running around for quite some time. Talking about a jubilee. I mean, there is a biblical concept of a jubilee.
That's right. What's happened is they're going to return the gold that was taken out of Asia, and then they're going to be a write-off of debt in exchange for that. Because if you went with the Khazarian satanic bankers solution, you guys would be paying your debt for 200 or 300 years. They'd say, all right, we'll give you a 300-year payment schedule. And you're debt slaves for 300 years.
Yes.
We're saying, no, we're going to set you free. There'll be no more debt. That's it. We're not debt, and it's going to be, from now on, it's not going to be a debt-based system. It's going to be a credit-based system.
I'm just curious what a reset of the entire global economy is going to look like if you actually have, massive debt forgiveness. And, of course, the reason so many banks are hanging on for their dear life to all this TARP money and all this money that they're getting from the taxpayers is that they are literally, I think, this summer, waiting for the derivatives market to collapse. And the derivatives market, which again is just made up. There's only $75 trillion worth of stuff on Earth. And everything above that is just made up money that people just say, well, you owe me this now. And we're talking about quadrillions of dollars.
Yeah, well, the thing, here's the problem there is that, you see, it's quadrillions of dollars, but it's a zero-sum game. It's like a bet. One person wins, one person loses, okay? So some of these banks have lost more money than exists on Earth, and other banks have earned more money on paper than exists on Earth.
Yes.
And clearly, something has to be worked out because these people were operating in a virtual reality as opposed to the physical one that we can touch with our hands and see with our eyes. So yes, that's gonna all have to be cleaned up, and I think that the important thing is to get all the crooks out of the system. I'll tell you, I met a guy who's a top killer for the Japanese Yakuza, right?
This I want to hear about. Okay, all right.
People's fingers off, one knuckle at a time, to get them to tell the truth, and then after that, he wraps their bodies and he dumps them in the ocean. Okay, that's what he does for a living. And he told me he could introduce me to the chair of Mitsubishi Bank, which is of course linked to the Rockefellers. And the reason I'm telling the story is because what does it tell you about the banking system if that's the kind of person you have to go through in order to get introduced to a banker?
Well, isn't the head of Sumitomo Bank Yoko Ono's father?
It could well be. I don't know, but the point is that the Japanese banking system was taken over at a high level by the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and these people. And we're basically saying, no, it doesn't belong to you. Give it back to the Japanese people. You didn't earn it. You stole it through murder and violence and blackmail and bribery. And fortunately, the right wing and other types here basically agreed that, yes, Japan is going to be independent again. And this is going to be a good thing for the people of the planet because they were going to, like, if Japan had won World War II, the Philippines would be a fully modern country now, like Japan. Instead, now you have naked children sleeping on the streets and horrendous pollution and deforestation. Right. That's the kind of management these crooks are capable of. They don't know how to run a planet. All they know how to do is steal and murder and enslave. They're not competent enough to run this planet. That's why they're being removed from power. They're evil, they're stupid, and they're dangerous.
That certainly seems to be the case for the United States. At least when the British went in and conquered a country like India, they at least built a banking system, they built schools, they introduced the English language, they introduced parliament, they introduced government. Usually when the United States comes in, we blow everything up and basically just take a dump on everything on our way out. How much does the shift in consciousness, or is there any consideration by the people that you're talking to about the shift in consciousness in 2012 and all of these historical cycles coming up in December 2012, the last sunset? And do any of these people have access to information, let's say, from any sort of projects like, Project Looking Glass, Project Foresight, remote viewers, any of that about future information past and beyond 2012?
There is a lot of stuff going on, but essentially they believe that it's going to be a half physical, half spiritual world that's coming. Okay?
Really? Give me an explanation of that. Define how you view that.
It's going to be a combination between the mental and the physical. Okay, the imagination and reality are going to combine. Let's just leave it at that for now. I have to go. There's going to be something quite interesting happening, I'm sure. We'll make it happen. We won't wait for somebody to open the sky and do it. We're going to do it ourselves, okay? You have a nice day.
All right. Thank you, Ben. Thanks a lot. That's Ben Fulford, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, my goodness. All right, so there he is. We'd be more than happy to take your phone calls about what you've just heard. Thank Ben Fulford. Thank you, Ben Fulford, for being you, my friend. He's said some fantastic things throughout the years. So there you have it. I mean, are we on the verge of some brave new world? Is it? Is there really something coming in 2012? What exactly does a world that's part imagination and part physical? And is it Willy Wonka's chocolate factory? I don't know. 218-339-8525. 218-339-8525 for you to call in, and we'll talk about some other things. Let me give you some updates. I'm not sure. We're kind of might be running out of time here regards to the break. But this is very interesting. There's information still coming in regarding, I do not believe there's been a ruling yet in the case in Georgia, the people versus Barack Obama, as to whether or not Barack Obama is going to be placed on the ballot in the state of Georgia or not. I reported on it. I read you the minutes from this. The update on that was specifically that Jablonski basically ditched it. He tried to have the case dismissed by claiming that Barack Obama was above the law He called the governor and tried to pressure him. He called the Secretary of State of Georgia and tried to pressure him as well to basically derail this when the case was not dismissed for lack of jurisdiction, which is the trick that they've gotten away with in all of the other cases. And this, once again, is this crusading young Russian lady, Orly Tates, who is also apparently running for Senate in California. So here's a news story as far as that someone just forwarded me from how Obama's eligibility fiasco poses trouble for the Democrats. And this was actually posted on the impeachobamacampaign.com. And again, if Georgia Secretary of State says Obama is off the ballot, it will set in motion a scary domino effect that will devastate that will devastate the ballot for the Democrats. I'm sorry, that's not written very well. Comments, questions, pinnings, engagements, announcements. Call up, man. You got a lot of questions. You guys are Skyping me a lot of things. Call up and let's talk about it on the phone. This is Sean David Morton. It's a strange universe, and we just work here. Stick around, strangers.
No rules, no rules, no taboo topics, no taboo topics, no fear of doom, no fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio, American Freedom Radio.